fusible stems or bias stems. Bias stems are really a lot easier than you think, and I'm going to show you how to make them. Hi, I'm Annie Smith, and I'm here today to share with you my form of machine applique, which is found in the C&T publication, the Ultimate Appliqué Reference Tool. Now, there are two different ways that you can make stems, either just creating a fused piece that will be flat and then stitched with a blanket stitch, or how to make a beautiful bias stem that kind of comes up off of your applique and just helps to accentuate all the beautiful flowers that you put with them. Because primarily my focus with applique is all about flowers, and flowers have stems. This is an example of beautiful bias stems. See how wonderful they just curve naturally and gracefully. And as long as you are using a strip of bias fabric, which is the 45-degree angle of the weave of your fabric, it will bend in any direction you want it to go. And then the great part about having a basted stem is that when you go to stitch, you'll be able to pull that stem back and then be able to stitch all the way around the leaf and then lay it back down and then stitch your stem down. So let me show you my process for bias stems. Okay, so I have a 7/8 inch strip of bias fabric that I have cut. And so I used to do a 1-inch strip, but I found that there is a real difference between the 1-inch strip and the 7/8 inch strip. So this is a 1-inch strip that is pressed trifold. And the thickness in it is just a little bit bigger than using a 7/8 inch strip, and I really like the 7/8 better. I think it's just a little more delicate, and maybe this one is just a little too big unless I am using a really heavy floral element that needs a wider stem. And so in that case, I can go back and forth between a 1-inch stem and a 7/8 inch stem. But for all of the purposes that I use them for, I really love using a 7/8 inch stem. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip this over and you're going to work from the back side. Now this is super easy. You don't need to hand baste this prior to pressing it. So what I'm going to do is just turn this over 1/3 of the way, and then I get my iron and I just turn it as I go and press. Now you can also use the Clover bias tools where you just put your strip of fabric in the little thing and then you just pull it along as you are pressing, but sometimes I can't find the notions that I want to use. And so I've just gone to just being kind of, you know, like doing it quick and dirty. And so I have the fabric and the iron. So once this is pressed, I'm going to flip it over so that the fold is away from me, and then I'm going to fold this over again 1/3 of the way, but not going past the folded edge that I just pressed, because it's really important for all of the raw edges to be in the center part of the bias strip. And so you can see that just how quickly this happens. And you know, if your bias stem is a little bit thinner or thicker in some places, it doesn't make any difference, because that's how stems are in real life. They're not just one thickness all the way through. And I really like my floral applique to be a lot more realistic as opposed to looking like it came out of a die. Okay, so in order to baste this, I have a needle threaded with contrasting thread that has a little knot in it. And I start out by taking a little stitch and then going back and taking another. And then with the needle still in it, I'm going to take a great big stitch, and I try to stitch right down the middle so that this raw edge is always getting caught with every stitch. And so I put 2 or 3 basting stitches on the needle at once, and then I pull it through. And so I'm going to make sure that everything stays neat and tidy. And then I baste all the way down to the end of the strip, and then I take a couple last stitches in it, just like this, and then I cut the thread, and then they're ready to go. And so if I need less of a stem length than this entire piece of bias, then all I do is cut it off. They remain basted until I'm ready to use them. So when I make bias stems, I make a lot of them so that they're ready to be used when I need them. And so I'll keep them in a Ziploc bag, and so they don't get knotted or anything. And then I just pull them out, cut them to the size I want, baste them down to my background, and my block is ready to be fused with the other elements. So, will you use fused stems or bias stems? It really is up to you. If you're going to do fused stems, then you will stitch them with a blanket stitch on both sides because the fabric will be raw. But if you're using bias stems, all you have to do is stitch 1/16 away from the edge and use a straight stitch, because a blanket stitch just is a little too full and sometimes it feels like it's a little clunky, and so I prefer to use a straight stitch, and it looks just beautiful along with the other elements, which are all stitched with a blanket stitch.